So having the right plot points in the right place is a sure way to improve your story. And that is why I wanted to talk about one of my favorite story structure, which is the 7-point story structure. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of A Year of Writing. My name's Natalie and I am your host. So the 7-point system can be used whether you're a plotter or a pantser. And it's a great way to structure your story. It was popularized by Dan Wells, a sci-fi author that talked about it at 2013 at the Life, Universe and Everything conference. And one of the reasons why it's so popular is because the 7 plot points can be approached in an almost symmetrical manner, and it can turn an intriguing idea into a full-fledged, super exciting story. And here's how. So at first I'm going to go through the short version of the 7-point system. Then I'm going to deep dive into each and every one of the different plot points. So the short version is that you have to have a hook, a compelling introduction to the story's intriguing world or characters. And at plot turn 1, there's an inciting incident that kicks off the story. In pinch 1, the situation escalates and the stakes are raised. And here, sometimes you introduce the antagonist or major conflict of the story. At the midpoint, the protagonist shifts from being reactive to being proactive. And at pinch point 2, there is some sort of major setback. And in plot turn number 2, your hero will discover how they can beat the antagonist, or, the key to victory is discovered. And the last plot point is the resolution, where, it's a climax and resolution where the conflict is resolved. But yeah, that all sounds easy, well. So let's dive into it a little bit more thoroughly. I'm also going to have some examples so that you can, get a clearer view of this. And if you want to learn more or watch Dan Wells' lecture about the 7-point system, I will leave the link in the description box so that you can watch it yourself. So number 1, the hook. So in the hook, the reader is introduced to the protagonist and the, normal world where the protagonist lives. It is crucial to establish a connection between the audience and the protagonist early on. So try to write a compelling beginning that hooks the reader. So it is important to have some sort of conflict here, something that makes the reader curious to keep on reading, even though the inciting incident hasn't happened yet. And another thing is that in the beginning, during the hook, your protagonist will be at the opposite way of where they will end up at the end of the story. So, if your protagonist is weak in the beginning, they will be strong at the end, or vice versa. And my example here is Harry Potter, who lives in a cupboard under the stairs. He is small, he is weak, he's a nobody. And the next step is plot turn number 1, the inciting incident. So, just when your protagonist thinks they know where their life is heading, the path they're on, something major happens that will force them out of their comfort zone and, set the story in motion. So this is a pivotal moment that disrupts the status quo and sets the story in motion. So whether it's a chance encounter, a mysterious message, or a life-altering event, the inciting incident propels the protagonist out of their comfort zone into the heart of the conflict. And the continuous example of Harry Potter here is that he finds out that he's a wizard and enters the wizarding world. So pinch point number 1 is something that will, pinch the story and really keep it going. And here the protagonist, embarks on a journey where there will be conflict, there will be obstacles, challenges, and an opportunity for the protagonist to actually grow into their new role. So this is the phase of the story where tension escalates, stakes are raised, and the protagonist's resolve will be put to test. Each twist and turn in the plot leads the protagonist closer to their ultimate goal, also while presenting new challenges for them to overcome. And the pinch point in Harry Potter is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione fights off the troll. And this is also, an exciting moment because this is when their friendship is actually cemented. And there we have the midpoint, which is, the point of no return. Halfway through the story, your protagonist will meet some sort of critical juncture where they will gain new insights and learn things both about the outside world, but also about themselves. There should probably be some sort of transformation here. This is usually the part when the protagonist goes from reacting to the world around them to becoming more proactive. It also sets, the pace for the antagonist and the protagonist to actually, move closer to the final showdown. And in Harry Potter, this is when Harry Potter encounters the being in the forest that sucks blood from a unicorn, and he decides that beings that does that are evil and should be opposed. And pinpoint number 2. So while we heard a long way towards the climax, the protagonist is pushed to their limits and face really, really hard odds. And at the second pinch point, this is usually the all is lost moment where the protagonist feels like, I can't go on any further. I don't know what to do. So it's a really, really deep and emotional stage for the protagonist, which creates a lot of tension in your story. This also forces your protagonist to face their deepest fears. And in Harry Potter, this is where Ron and Hermione falls into the magical trap and leaves Harry Potter alone on his way to find the Sorcerer's Stone. And after that, we have plot point number 2. And in plot point number 2, your main character receives the last, missing piece, the piece of information that they need to the conflict in the story. It can also be like in the Matrix, the power is in you, or something like that. It's usual at this moment, so that is one example. And in Harry Potter, this is when Harry looks in the magical mirror and sees that since he is pure of heart, the stone is in his own pocket. And the last plot point is the climax or resolution. And this is the final showdown of the story. This is where it all comes together. Will your protagonist win the fight or will they lose? It's up to you. But this is the big climax when it all happens. And after that, there will be, you will have to clean up all the loose ends and stuff like that. And in Harry Potter, this is when Harry defeats Voldemort. So, yeah. And I really love using the 7-point system because it's so... I guess I like it because it's partly because it's very symmetrical. It's very easy to use. I've used it for mostly for fiction, but actually even for non-fiction works when I wanted to create a compelling story around, a compelling narrative. And it's also very nice that I know that it's symmetrical. And yeah, I really, really like this one. And I think that whether you plan your stories or if you pants them, you can still use this one since it is so symmetrical. So you know that soon there will have to be a dark moment, or soon there will have to be a plot turn or a pinch point or whatever. And just knowing that can help you create a more engaging story. And I guess that is the point of these story structures, and using all of these, the 3, you can use the 3 acts instead or whatever. But the reason why we use them is for the story to become as good as it can be. And yeah, I don't see any point in trying to reinvent the wheel, because we have been using the same story structures for years and years, like thousands of years. So obviously they work. So why not, learn them, use them. And once you learn them, then, experiment a little bit and try maybe break them. But otherwise, yeah, I would use them wisely. So I hope you enjoyed this episode about the 7-point system story structure. That is all for today. I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks. Bye.